Hi, my name is Alex Hera. I've been an independent filmmaker since late 2019. 1 year ago, on New Year's Day in 2021, I made a video called What I Learned in 1 Year of Filmmaking, summarizing some of the basic but important lessons that I learned on set in my first full year of being a filmmaker. And since we're now welcoming 2022, I figured, why not keep the tradition going? I was busy in 2021 with my web series Walker Creek, alongside a few other projects, and I still have plenty of new foundational lessons to share. To most filmmakers, these might seem like no-brainers, but in the end, this is my journey, and what I've learned may be valuable to some or merely interesting to others. So, without further ado, here's what I learned in 2 years of filmmaking. Up first, overestimate how much time you need. I'm sure I said something similar or maybe identical in my video last year, but always give yourself more time than you need to shoot. Underestimating how long it takes to get the right shot, the right performance, and overestimating your own speed and skill is something I've always struggled with. It's easy to look at a page or two of dialogue and go, yeah, that'll only take an hour, without taking into consideration technical issues and alterations, imperfect performances from the actors, or doing multiple takes with them, delays, unplanned difficulties on set, or simply wanting to take it slow and get everything right. You might need to sit down with an actor and perfect a specific line, or change the lighting setup due to an unanticipated issue, or take a break for a while, or so many other things. When I started with my web series, Walker Creek, I tried shooting 5 or 8 pages a day, which sounds ridiculous, but I was a dumb indie filmmaker, and still am to be honest. Sometimes this worked, albeit with low quality performances and cut corners, but sometimes even then we weren't able to finish. By the end of the series, I was down to shooting 2 to 4 pages per day, depending on the complexity. And beyond that, I planned for failure. I had extra shoot days in our schedule that I didn't think we needed, and for the most part, we didn't. But at a few points, particularly the mine scene shoot and the home scene, we used multiple extra days. But because these were built into the schedule, we didn't fall behind and we were able to get the best performances out of everyone involved. It's obvious in retrospect that I should have been doing this, but it's easy to get caught up in the idea of finishing early, knocking out shots and scenes, and completing the project, as well as overestimating how efficiently you and your cast and crew can operate. And in particular, this is a necessity on an indie project with more inexperienced crew members and a more amateur cast that might need help or want to work with the director on new ideas while on set. Which brings me to my next point. Don't underestimate actors. With Hollywood films, I constantly hear about actors improvising on set, coming up with their own character traits, bringing new ideas to the director that improve the movie by unimaginable amounts. On indie films, I hear some of those stories. But some of the stories I hear are far less flattering. Micromanaging directors, writing every beat, every movement, every intonation and emphasized word into the script and burning it into the minds of every actor and refusing to let go of even an ounce of their vision. Now, don't get me wrong, it's important to have a strong vision and idea of what your characters are and how each scene plays out physically and emotionally. However, directors aren't gods, and actors are far more than living props to move around to play out your story. They're creative artists too, and a lot of times they can become far more invested in their character than the writer or director. Micromanaging their performance seems like an issue to me, for a number of reasons, even disregarding how unfun the vibe on set must be. It misses out on everything the actor has to offer for the character and production, including their own mannerisms, improvisation, and insight. On my productions in 2021, both in Walker Creek and in smaller unreleased short films, I workshopped various lines and scenes with actors immensely, both in terms of the blocking and the emotion, and even the wording of some of the lines or the delivery of those lines. I had many things I refused to budge on, but I had many that I was more loose towards, moments where the actors could make it their own. And many times it ended up being better than what I had in mind, whether it was the blocking, delivery, or even entire lines that were added or removed by the actors themselves. Now, not every request or decision they made was correct, but a lot of them had potential, and a lot of those decisions were outright great, and working with the actors and allowing them to have creative freedom over their characters elevated a lot of the scenes I shot this year. Next, try to push your limits. Now, I mean this in multiple ways. I mean this in terms of work ethic, in terms of your actual equipment and abilities on set, and I mean this in terms of what you create overall. Too many indie filmmakers that I see get caught up in what experience they think they need, what gear they want to have, and what genres or styles they're fully comfortable working with. I see people my age actively resistant to trying new things and refusing to do something if they feel like their situation isn't absolutely perfect. There's always shinier gear or more lessons to learn, but at the end of the day, learning comes from creating, and quality comes from skill, not gear. Last year in 2020, I had experience creating a few short films, all less than 10 minutes. In 2021, I pushed myself to create a 100-episode-long web series, which was later turned into an hour-long feature film. I took the same gear I had in old short films like Isolation, same microphone, camera, lenses, and editing software, and I created a film that looks, sounds, and feels better than almost everything else I've ever created. I watched YouTube videos, I took classes, and more than anything, I spent hundreds, if not thousands, of hours shooting and editing over the past year, doing so many new things outside of my comfort zone that I had zero experience with beforehand, and learning from every single moment, coming out the other side with a giant web series and a feature-ish length film. And after I finished it, I went into a whole different genre and created my first documentary, despite always being uninterested, inexperienced, and generally uncomfortable with creating non-fiction projects of that sort. And not only did I create what is, in my opinion, a pretty interesting and high-quality documentary, I realized that I really enjoyed it, and it's a genre I'd love to work with further. I could have taken the easy route by just taking the year off, or focusing solely on film class projects, or even just working on smaller scale ideas. But by doing that, I would have been even more of a beginner than I am now, missing out on so many lessons and challenges, and having no finished products to show for it at the end. So, push your limits as far as you can. Not only will you learn more about filmmaking, but you might just learn something about yourself too. And finally, the most absolutely important thing I learned this year. Always prioritize audio. If there was just one thing that I could beat into the heads of beginner filmmakers, it's this. I've heard for years that audio is the most important part of filmmaking, while simultaneously being the most commonly ignored. You can tell this is true just by watching a handful of student films online, but I didn't realize quite how true this was for my own project until I began doing much larger scale things, like Walker Creek, particularly the final episodes that we shot basically like a feature film. Getting good audio can be hard, especially as an independent filmmaker with a limited budget. When you're operating with only a boom pole and a cheap mic, you have to make sacrifices. In the beginning, the sacrifices I made were audio. Positioning the microphone too far away from the subject in order to get the right shot, not doing retakes for audio mistakes in order to keep shooting on time, relying on post-production audio editing to improve the quality and remove noise, and so much more. Despite many filmmakers and teachers warning me, I did make audio an afterthought. But once I actually got to editing and realized how much sloppy audio work detracts from the film, I made it far more of a priority. From the beginning to the end of Walker Creek's finale episodes, you can tell how the audio becomes far better, even though the equipment didn't change. Like I said earlier, skill trumps equipment any day. I work to have far better positioning for the mic, have ADR sessions, rely less on audio editing, and, as I said earlier, have longer and more frequent shoot days to let us put more time into the planning and reshooting, and more care into each aspect of the production, including audio. Now, there's a long way to go. To this day, I still underestimate audio sometimes. Even my most recent project here on YouTube, Cooking with Adam, has pretty low quality audio because I was careless and in a rush. It's inexcusable, but at least I recognized the issue. And in the end, that's the whole point of this. To grow, you need to recognize your mistakes and learn new lessons. With this video, I've tried to summarize a few of my mistakes and lessons, and how I've grown as a filmmaker. Really, it's just holding myself accountable. And I do hope you're able to take something away from this, whether it's an actual lesson about filmmaking, or just the motivation to go out and learn more. On a final personal note though, it's been a long year, and I'm looking forward to my next few projects. Walker Creek was the largest and longest term project I've ever attempted, and I am very glad that it's over. But it, alongside the making of documentary about it, are two of my proudest accomplishments. We'll see if I can top them in 2022. In the meantime, I'm still figuring out what to do with this channel. I have a few ideas, but, well, I guess I'll just see you then. Kind regards, Alex Hera. Happy New Year.